Written documents, a very common primary document used in the classroom. Written documents usually contain a large chunk of narrative. Let's take a look at a few of them. It could possibly be an advertisement, a journal, or even a letter. But the key to a written document is that it is chock-filled with historical information. For students, it's very important that they understand the steps in analyzing a document. Let's take a look at this one here. Our first step in analyzing would be, 1, identify what type of document this is. Quickly, you can see it's a letter. It's addressed to Dear Sir. It's written by Killis. It is written to Mr. James Carpenter in Goshen, New York. We instantly can tell that the author is located in a New York State prison, and it was written June 17, 1816. Second, we want to look overall at the document. Look at how old and weathered. You clearly can tell it's a letter from the actual creases that have worn away. Now, when we read this narrative, we find out that Killis is a person that's asking Mr. Carpenter for help. He explains his situation, that he is in prison. He was arrested for stealing $100 worth of goods off of a wagon and was sentenced to 7 years hard labor. He then goes on to ask Mr. Carpenter for help. Please get me out of this prison, and if so, I will return to my duties. Now, after reading this document, students are filled with a tremendous amount of questions. What's the relationship between Killis and James Carpenter? Return to duties? I wonder what he did for Mr. Carpenter. Students can start to research this document, and look what they find. This document, as you can tell, is an ad that answers all of our questions. Here we find out that Killis is actually a slave owned by James Carpenter. And this is an ad that Mr. Carpenter put out asking for the return of his slave Killis. And he was willing to give a reward of $30. Amazing how much information actually comes from this. As a teacher, this would be a great primary document set to bring in to talk about slavery in New York State. We can also look at a journal. This one is a journal entry written by a young girl for a school assignment in 1888. She's in Lansingburg, New York, and her journal talks about a snowstorm that took place from March 11th to March 13th. It goes on to talk about how the snow was so deep they had to dig tunnels and put lanterns in them. Plows were stuck down by the ice house, horse carriages couldn't go any further, and sleighs were actually broken because there was so much snow. There's a lot of detail in that journal article. Students, after they read this, start to say, is this a creative writing piece, or was there really that much snow during March in New York State? Well, we do our further research, and look what we find. We find that, yes, her journal was historically accurate. Look at Lansingburg in 1888. There was a tremendous amount of snow. In this photo, you see the snow peaks just as tall as the little boy standing. You can almost make out the tunnels that Emma talks about in her essay. Also, in this photo, you see the snow peaks just under the store signs. Amazing amount of snow. As you can see, written documents are a wonderful type of primary document to bring into the classroom. However, there are a few obstacles that we can overcome and help students in interpreting these narratives. Take a look on this letter. What might be a nice way, instead of having students feel overwhelmed by all of the writing, especially in script, we could actually chunk a piece of information and have just the student interpret a tiny piece from this letter. Also, teachers could transcribe the entire document if the handwriting is very difficult to read. Some teachers could actually audio tape themselves reading it, place it in a center, and have students listen and follow along to the teacher reading the article. Vocabulary might be a tricky situation, so a word bank might be helpful for some documents so that students can substitute the definition and not lose the context while reading the document. All of these things will help make documents very, very easy for students to interpret, and they'll be very excited because look at this. This is history. So bring in a written document into your classroom and watch history come to life.